Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob. How's it going?
Welcome to our second 2022 ski comparison. This time on the wall we have what we're calling kind of mid-100 millimeter Freeride.
Yep.
So I think most of these skis are getting outside of the all-mountain category. Some of them kind of, I guess, blur the line between all-mountain and Freeride. Some of them on the narrower end of the spectrum, which we'll talk about as we go through, but pretty much all of these skis are at least somewhat geared towards soft snow use.
Yes.
I think that's a fair, just overarching theme that we've got going here.
Yep.
And then as a way to organize the skis, in this video, we thought we would go lightest to heaviest.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense for something like this where touring is in play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where we do have a fair amount of these where kind of that 50-50, in resort, out of bounds use definitely comes into play. So I think I think it makes sense for this category. There are some towards the heavier end that are, metal, full metal, but there's once we get into this width, we're seeing lighter and generally softer skis.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting setting up the wall. I think it's fair to say that we were both kind of surprised by a couple skis. Which is weird because we've seen their weights listed on paper, but there's something about weighing it yourself and then like organizing them from lightest to heaviest that, to me, there were some surprises, and I think we can kind of note those as we go through. Bob pointed this out right before we started filming, and we thought we would start with it because it is just a really interesting concept in general. We have the Ripstick 106 from Elan right here and the Rossignol Sender right there. So this is the lighter side of the wall. And then over on that side of the wall, we have the Ripstick 106 Black and the Sender Ti. So just interesting to see how kind of skis from the same collection with basically the same shape. In Elan's case, it is the same shape. Yeah. You have kind of two different options based on width and thus your level of aggressiveness and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yep, with the end result being the skier gets all the benefits.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, with that said, let's get right to it. The first ski on the wall is the Atomic Backland 107. Lightest ski, obviously, because it's all the way over there on the left. And it's actually the lightest on this wall by a significant margin. 1480-ish grams right here. This is the 175 centimeter length, which is, I suppose, on the shorter end of the spectrum in the grand scheme of what lengths we have up here. But still very, very lightweight. Yeah. They use their ultra power wood core in this ski with some carbon stringers as well. There's a little window in the ski's graphic right here where you can see all those carbon stringers come through. In terms of rocker and camber shape, we get quite a bit of tip rocker. You're going to see a lot of rocker in a lot of these skis as we go through. So a tip rocker starts right about there where my hand is. And then quite a lot of camber underfoot too, and it's pretty high rise camber as well. Flex pattern of these skis, at just under 1,500 grams, you're not going to get the most powerful ski, and I think the flex pattern corresponds with that. Yeah. It's not the stiffest ski up here by any means, but you do get a nice amount of energy from it, from that high camber height, which I think is really cool. So, Backland 107, easily one of the best for alpine touring. Yep. Of all the skis up here, it's the lightest. Its shape works really, really well for softer snow conditions. You get plenty of float out of this tip. Atomic's Horizon Tech kind of adds a little bit of extra surface area up there. I think it was inspired by a surfboard technically, but in my mind I always like to think of it as like a displacement boat hull. Yep. You're pushing more material away, which thus decreases pressure, increasing float, which is a really cool concept. So you get all those kind of soft snow capabilities, soft snow shape, but this ski is pretty strong too. It's interesting because it's partial cap construction. It kind of tapers to cap construction right as you reach the tips and tails, but you do get vertical sidewall underfoot, high camber height, and that means it's a fairly strong ski underfoot. Very, very agile if you're skiing softer snow or trees or stuff like that. But I will always think back to that day when we were skiing with Atomic and you were filming Kaz, strong skier with a racing background. He works for Atomic, and he just absolutely took off on these things on really firm snow.
Yes.
And that was just, it was unbelievable to see what this ski can do. We have footage of it. It's kind of hard to see Kaz because he literally takes off.
Yeah,
But
I could not keep up.
yeah, he was bombing on these things. So although they're light, they're pretty stable and fairly powerful too.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with this pretty flat tail. We'll look at a bunch of the tail shapes of these skis, but we do have just a smidge of that early taper, but very minimal rocker and pretty darn flat. And I think that does two things. One, it really gives you good energy out of the turn. It holds on to that edge longer. The second, for a touring ski, it's just easier to attach that skin to the flatter tail.
Yeah.
You don't have this rocker twin tip that has a hard time holding onto that skin. So it's a nice, addition for that touring ski, with adding some of that, all mountain performance and capabilities to it.
Yeah, and obviously because Atomic makes the binding, but it's a great candidate for the shift.
Yeah, I mean that is a really nice pairing, both in marketing and in reality. Every once in a while there's some differences there, but I think that's a nice pairing.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up here we got the Head Core 105.
Yeah, so these are like the other cores that we saw, the 99. Do we have the 99 in the other video? Yes.
We have the 87.
87, I'm sorry, I'm thinking farther back. So these get the same changes. So they lose the choroid, they keep the graphene, carbon, and Karuba, but it's just a little bit more supple of a flex. 1650 grams.
Yeah, so you can see that big jump up from the Backland.
Right, even if we had like the huge Backland, like the longest Backland, I think it would still be lighter.
Yep.
What you get with this Core 105 here is a stiff flex for that lightweight. So we've talked about this endlessly of how can they get this ski so stiff and yet so light. And that does a couple of things. One, it makes this one of the more maneuverable skis on the wall. I mean, you can get this thing from edge to edge, turn to turn, about as quick as anything else here. At 105, that's a pretty important thing to have. Another thing here is this pretty dramatic
Taper?
Taper, thank you. Sorry, rocker, taper, all these terms. Pretty dramatic taper. So nice and thin in the very tip, and then widest points down about here. So one of the more spoony shapes on the wall as well. I think that they need to do that, and that's a good thing to do with this ski because it's so stiff.
I agree.
If that taper was more towards the tip of the ski, this would be a lot twitchier. So they're able to get kind of the surfiness and smeariness that they want in a 105 by incorporating that taper into especially the tips, a little bit straighter in the tail. That's going to give a good kick out of the turn. But, we've just been really impressed with the maneuverability and agility of these core skis. And obviously when you have something that's stiff, it's going to have pretty good edge hold as well. So, you do have to be prepared for that, especially given how stiff the ski is, that it's going to want to hook up on hard snow specifically.
Yeah.
So one of the better, harder snow skis, even though it's so light.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think all the Head Core skis are fairly interesting skis, just in how they are so stiff, but also really light.
Yeah.
And the 105, really all the wider skis, once you get to 105, so then 111 and 117, they all, for some reason when I'm skiing them, they feel softer than they actually are. Like when you hand flex it, it's crazy.
Right.
Like I can barely even flex it. But when you ski it, I think the rocker camber profile, like you were saying in the early taper, it really helps just kind of give them a smoother, more supple feel. Definitely another good candidate for an alpine touring binding, hybrid alpine touring binding.
Yeah, absolutely.
I personally feel like really the Backland 107 would be the only ski on this wall that would be good for a dedicated touring setup. Like you're only touring. I'd suppose this and maybe the next ski, but most of these to me you're going to be using them within the resort, at least sometimes. Definitely better than the previous Core 105.
I think it's an improvement.
Yeah. Just objectively comparing this ski to the previous ski. Retained overall its characteristics and its nature, but just refined it.
Yeah, and then if you didn't get it on the 87, They did tighten up the lengths as well, so it's not a 9 centimeter break anymore. It's down to a 7, so more options.
Yeah. Next ski is the Blaze 106, another one that's very, very lightweight, another excellent candidate for a hybrid touring binding. This is 1750 grams, and this is the 179 centimeter length. With Volkl, you know, the corresponding binding would be like the Duke PT12, maybe Duke PT16 if you want like really burly binding. But that would kind of be the matching binding to this ski. Very interesting ski. I really had a good time sitting and chatting with Andy Mon. That video is up. I'll try and remember to leave a link to it in the description of this video. And we talked a lot about just the development of these skis. And there's a lot of just design features in here that are pretty unique to Volkl. One is the just drastic amount of tip rocker. So the tip rocker starts way back there by my hand. Not quite as long in the tail, but still pretty substantial length in the rocker. But there's not much splay.
In the tail specifically.
Yeah,
too,
I mean, the tip either. There's a little more in the tip, but yeah, not much splay back here. So although it's long rocker, it's pretty flat. And then you get just barely a little bit of camber underfoot. It's almost just completely flat. They use a hybrid multi-layer wood core in these skis, so similar to what Volkl uses in a lot of their skis, but right in the center you get a strip of synthetic material, and then you get some metal underfoot. And then rounding it out is their 3D radius, which is super pronounced in these skis. I always like to read it because it's just crazy. 36, 17, 28 for the 3D radius in this ski. So how I like to think about the Blaze, it's kind of Volkl's take on what a smeary ski should be. And I say that, as I say that, there's another ski right there that like maybe that's their smeary ski, the Revolt 104. But this is going to be more popular than the Revolt 104, just across the board in general. Yeah. More people are going to choose this. And I do think it blends kind of Volkl heritage with like a modern freeride ski. And what I mean by that is they're light and they're agile and they're surfy and they're smeary. This tip is huge, so you get a lot of flotation up here. But they also have some precision that feels like a Volkl. Not quite as pingy as a mantra, but there's something about them that has that Volkl quality, which is something that I always correspond with precision, responsiveness. So super loose in the tips and tails when you want it to be, but then shorter radius underfoot, you know, that metal binding platform and some camber underfoot. So depending on how you're weighting the ski and how you're skiing it, you can get it to smear, and you can also get it to make like really short, quick, like responsive Volkl turns. So I think it's a really cool ski. I think there's a lot of benefits to it, and because of how they build it, I think there's a pretty broad appeal. A lot of different people can ski this and like it a lot. You know, I can ski it and play around with releasing the tail and smearing and being silly. Somebody like Marcus, you know, Marcus skis it a lot, and he's a little bit more traditional in his turn shapes, and it works really well for both skiers. So great ski. And
that metal underfoot it goes edge to edge, you know, for the toe piece and the heel piece. So, and it connects in the middle. So it is a functional piece. It's not just a binding retention plate.
It's designed for function.
Yeah, I think that and the 3D radius really separate this ski from the others in this wall, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it is. This is one of those skis that kind of surprised me.
Yep.
For some reason, I thought it was lighter. And putting it on the scale, I didn't take it as a negative at all. It just kind of reminded me like where it actually sits in the world of skis.
Right.
Like sometimes in my mind, this is like just a lightweight touring ski, but it's more than that.
Yep.
You know, it's more versatile than just pigeonholed as a touring ski.
Yeah, definitely.
Bob, next up is the Ripstick 106 from Elan.
Yeah, we've obviously, if you've been following us, we talk about these Ripstick skis a lot. Just how fun they are and how easy they are and intuitive to ski. A lot of that has to do with just how they construct and shape these skis. We've talked about these carbon tubes quite a bit. 1884 grams in the 180 here.
Okay, so another significant jump.
Yep.
We're about to get to some skis where we're not going to make significant jumps.
Yeah, they're pretty tight in the middle. But we talk about their use of carbon. So in that lightweight wood core, there are 2 carbon tubes that run along the sides here, along the sidewall. Using that 360 degree, that 3-dimensional application of carbon, it's put in there under pressure, so there's energy built into the ski,
Yep.
and you can really feel it. At this 106 width, you start to get to the wider part of the line, and you're feeling that you can get this thing up on edge. I find that the 88, like all of the Ripstick skis, work better when they're up on edge.
Yeah, no,
and the higher the edge
love being on
angle,
edge.
the more dynamic you
Yeah.
get out of them. And so with the wider skis, you can even make that edge angle higher. So it's almost like this is almost a better carving ski than the narrower versions.
It's funny that you say that, because I often think that
Yep.
and feel that when I'm skiing them. And I also, I was wondering if you were going to go down that avenue, because I also feel like as they get wider, you just get more material and they're a little stiffer.
Yep.
So the 106 is like a little bit more powerful than the 96.
Yeah.
It's
like
really interesting.
when I hand flex the 88, it's
Right.
it's not as stiff as this.
Right.
There's
So-
more material, there's more carbon.
Right.
You know, it adds up.
It's kind of counterintuitive
Yeah.
to how most skis are designed.
Yep.
You know, going back to the cores, you know, specifically the narrower cores are designed to be stiffer, and then as you get wider, they get softer
Yeah.
and looser. But there's something about the Ripsticks where it's like you get more material and they're just a little stronger.
Carbon line is the other big thing. So they're able to build their skis. They build their skis asymmetrically. So this is the right foot. This carbon strip on the inside edge gives more grip to that inside downhill edge of the ski. Leaves the outside a little bit more playful. They rocker their skis that way too, so that rocker bends out on the outside edge. Really makes for smooth transitions in turns. Super intuitive. You don't really have to think about it. It's pretty incredible when you go from edge to edge how easy it is to get this thing up, even at this width.
Gives it a more intuitive feel in soft snow too.
Yep, absolutely. It doesn't hook. It doesn't catch at all. So it's not really the traditional rocker profile that we see in these skis, you know, because they're able to bend it a little bit on the edge. But we still see a little bit of that camber underfoot, and you know, starting, you know, pretty far back, but nothing crazy like that Blaze we just saw.
No, I think among all the skis on this wall, this is a moderate rocker profile.
And low in the tail, minimal splay. They do have, you know, that skin notch cut out there, so, you know, it's a fine option for that 50-50 touring ski.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although
perfectly light.
I think
Under
that-
1,900 grams.
Yep, under 1,900 grams. You know, easy to ski, good at floating, and you know, why wouldn't you go uphill on it? It's probably a very efficient climber.
Sure.
But just a really fun overall ski from Elan. You know, just another kind of, you know, notch in their belt for making great skis.
Yeah, we probably sound like a broken record with these things, but it's just very impressive how they blend edge grip and stability with a ski that's relatively light, pretty energetic, snappy, playful, just loves to kind of bounce around and play, but can also lay over some good carbs.
Yeah.
So,
Very
impressive accomplishments from Elan. Okay, next ski we have up here is the Black Crow's Corvus Freebird. We kind of went back and forth about what Black Crows we wanted to include in this video. Ultimately decided that this one fit best, and this is another one that kind of surprised me, very similar to the Blaze in the fact that it's heavier than I thought it was, and again, that's not necessarily in a bad way.
Right.
So just under 1,900 grams here, 1,880. This thing's pretty long, 183.4 centimeter length. Poplar wood core in these skis. We get metal underfoot, we get some carbon, and we also get some fiberglass. So a lot going into their build. And the surprise for me mostly came from the fact that they're in Black Crow's touring line.
Yeah.
You know, they get that Freebird title, and anytime I see that, I think lightweight and touring. but you see a lot of these within the resort.
Yeah, definitely.
And putting it on the scale and just kind of like taking the time to assess it objectively, it's really no wonder why. Because that weight is more of a versatile resort AT option than a true touring ski. So if you're like me and you were kind of thinking of this as more of a dedicated touring ski, I would adjust your opinion of it because it's more than that.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty strong ski. That's shown in the flex pattern. You know, it's not the softest ski up here by any means. You get a nice supportive flex pattern, pretty consistent. To go back to the last comparison article, you know, you don't get like a softer tip or anything like that. And then really good shape for soft snow too. I think it's fair to say that a lot of Black Rose skis have some soft snow design in them. So it's certainly no surprise to see it in this ski. Long tip rocker up here and long taper too. So maybe not as drastic as some, but this spoony shape is proven to perform really well in soft snow. What's unique about this ski compared to most up here is we really don't get much tail rocker at all. Of course you get a skin attachment point up there, and then you get quite a lot of camber underfoot, so pretty high rise camber underfoot. And all that makes sense when you think about what this ski is for. You know, we were talking about it before we started filming, and it's not really like a hut-to-hut type touring ski, but really good if you were going for a single run on really technical terrain.
Yeah.
You know, when you are in the backcountry, when you're truly out there in the backcountry, sometimes having a lot of tail rocker isn't really what you want. Having a stiffer, more supportive tail like this can come in handy when things get sketchy.
Right. There's no washing out on this ski.
Right. When you're skiing like crazy lines in Chamonix, you don't want your ski to wash out.
Yeah.
You want some bite, you want some grip, and you want some feedback from what's behind you. And I think that's a good way to think about this ski.
Yep.
So if you're looking for like a playful, smeary ski, go buy the Atris or the Atrice.
Yeah.
Never know how to pronounce these Black Rose skis. But that's the other ski that we were considering putting in this comparison. And ultimately we decided that we should keep that for more of a powder ski, a true dedicated powder ski comparison. So if that's what you want from Black Rose, go get the Atris. This is going to be stronger, more supportive, more of a technical skier's ski is how I think about it.
Yeah, and we had also mentioned like this is probably one of the most resort skinning oriented skis.
Yeah.
If you're doing 1-2 runs
Right.
at the like in the resort skinning,
Right.
this is a great choice.
Take a lift up, traverse over somewhere, skin up that peak that's not technically part of the resort, ski down, traverse back to the lift.
Yeah.
Here's your ski.
Yeah, but that tail and the length of the camber underfoot really are unique to this ski on this wall.
Yeah. There are others that come close, but not quite all the way.
And certainly not at that weight.
Yes, exactly. It's also pink.
Yeah, top and bottom. It's very similar to that Ranger though too. We got a Rossignol Sender. This is the regular Sender version, not the TI version, which we can get to. We kind of, when we were talking about this ski beforehand, we kind of said this is the people's powder ski.
Yeah.
This is your, everyday skier. It comes in a wide range of sizes. This TI version comes in a 180, 187, and 194.
Yeah,
so
much bigger range.
Much bigger range. I think this goes down to a 154. So there's a lot of different skiers that can ski on this. We got a lightweight wood core. It's made of Polonia. They have the dual LCT Visco, so it's more of a rubbery type of material for damping. And then, it just makes the ski very light, maneuverable, but still strong and stable. So pretty good flex. I mean, I would say that this is one of the more surprisingly stiffer skis for its weight, other than the core. But it definitely makes a lot of sense for who's going to be skiing it and what they're going to do. I also peg this as more of someone's powder ski. They're going to have a narrower all-mountain ski in their quiver as well. This is someone's snow day ski. Our first ski over 1,900 grams in this 178.
Just barely.
Just barely. It's just fluttering back and forth there. So with that, additional weight, using that term loosely, you are going to get a little bit more stability.
Yep.
Spoony, still with that spoony shape that we see in the Sender Ti as well. That lower taper kind of contributes to that. Another one of these more directionally shaped, much like that Corvus Freebird, with somewhat of a flatter tail there, some nice positive camber underfoot. So with that lighter weight in the wood, you do have that camber built in to get you the energy in the ski. And then pretty good tip rocker there, goes down pretty low, but it's low, not a ton of splay here for how long it is. So just an easy people's powder ski. Great in the woods, easy to ski in the bumps, anywhere on the resort for a soft snow day. This thing's gonna be a really nice friend.
Yeah, even carves well too.
Yep.
It's a very even mix of performance characteristics in this ski.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps one of the most well-rounded skis on this wall. I think it's fair to say that it's at least in like the top 3 or 4 just well-rounded, do-it-all freeride skis. And totally a directional freeride ski too. So not like, there's no twin tip, not even close in there. A little bit more rise than the Corvus, but really not much. Something that I think about every once in a while is like very similar to what you would get if Nordica just took the Enforcer 100 and made it wider.
And took the metal out?
Yeah. Instead, Nordica made their wider Enforcers more dual rocker twin tip shapes. But if you like that kind of Enforcer 100 shape,
yes,
that works well for you, but you want a wider ski, this is actually an interesting one to consider.
Yep,
and the
definitely.
Sender Ti as well. They both kind of fall under that description. Next ski on the wall is the K2 Reckoner 102. We actually had to pull the binding off this thing so we could get an accurate weight. Just an example of our dedication to our craft.
I mean, we even pulled the demo plate off.
Yeah, the binding and the plate, because you don't want the plate on there screwing things up. So just over 1,920 grams. Actually, we'll call it 1,910. Scale's a little bit all over the place, but just over 1,900 grams here. So in the grand scheme of things, we're still at a relatively lightweight category or realm here. This is a 184, so on the longer side of the spectrum. There's a wood core in these skis. I don't even remember exactly what's in it, but I know you do, Bob.
It's fir and aspen in there.
Yeah, I wanted to say ash for some reason. But more importantly, at least in my opinion, we get carbon spectral braid. So that's a really important thing that K2 is using both in the Mindbender series as well as this Reckoner collection. It's a little different in how they use it in the different skis. But it's a cross-hatching weave of carbon, or braid of carbon. And you might not be able to see it with this graphic. This kind of purpley graphic hides it a little more than the old graphic did. But the weave is looser in the tips and tails and tighter underfoot. So that means you're getting more torsional stiffness underfoot and less in the tips and tails by design. That corresponds with its flex pattern, and this is quite easily one of the softest flexing skis, if not the softest flexing ski on this entire wall. I feel like I could bend it in half. I don't think I could, but it is one of those skis where it just feels like it would keep going. So if you think about that, soft tips and tails, you actually can tell that it's stiffer underfoot. You guys can't see the tail right now, but there's almost like a hinge point right here where the rest of the ski flexes a lot. So less torsional stiffness in the tips and tails, softer flex in the tips and tails means it's very, very, very playful. It's very smeary, super easy to release the tail edge. If you want to do like nose butter 360s or tail butters or whatever, it's really good at that stuff. If you want to ollie and press and just do all that kind of new school freeride / freestyle stuff, this ski is really, really good at that. But what I always really enjoy about this ski is if you get a high edge angle and you're linking carves, you actually get a decent amount of grip underfoot. And then with the amount that the tips and the tails are willing to bend, it's one of those skis that just trenches into turns.
Yes.
There's definitely a limitation when it comes to speed and how aggressively you're pushing on it. But if you stay balanced in the center of the ski and just link carving turns, relatively easily, it makes some really cool turns.
I would say it was the most surprised I've been on a ski over the past year and a half.
Right.
As to how clean and round this ski made carved turns.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
I couldn't believe it.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
You don't we talk about this a lot, but us as skiers, there's like a certain amount of ego in it.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to think that I want to carve. I'm pretty darn good at skiing. I need a ski with metal that's stiff so I can carve. But then you get on something like this and it's just so fun.
Yeah.
Like just the way that this tip just flexes right into the next turn, it's just willing to do whatever you want.
And as you said though, at 30 plus miles an hour, this type of vibration is only gonna get more and more.
Right. There's major limitations at speed, but it more than makes up for that in its playfulness and just how fun it is to ski.
Yep.
Really good in the trees, and also something that you could use as an all-mountain ski. Say you're an eastern skier, this might be your soft snow dedicated ski, but also something that you can take into the park too.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a ski that I have been considering choosing as my next park ski, just because of how fun it is.
Yeah. And then along those lines of ego, this is the 184. This is the longest it comes.
Yep.
That the Reckoner 112 goes up to a 191. We have found though that these K2s measure a little bit longer, so don't top yourself out. I guess at 184, I'm 6'2", 225 pounds. I don't think I would like this in a 191, knowing that it just feels that it measures a little bit longer.
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting part to this ski as well.
Yeah, I will say standing next to the ski at a 184, that's a long 184.
Yeah.
Just visually.
And then I'll just keep this one up here. I think it's funny to put this DPS next to it.
Sure.
This is the DPS Pagoda 106 C2. And looking at this wall before, I noticed, wow, these skis, they both have aspen in them. They both have carbon. They're both purple, yet they couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
Just the way that these two companies go about their carbon application and how they have that wood core in there is pretty unique. But I just thought that was really interesting to see that out of how similarly they're using materials, how different the overall feel of these skis
same
can be.
Materials, drastically different skis.
And that just speaks to what shaping and construction and the profile of skis can do versus just them being a wood core.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff. 19, 11, 12 grams, pretty much a tie. This one's going to be less per cubic centimeter, just because it's a shorter length. This is a 179.
We're working on the displacement tank.
Yeah, the cubic centimeter. Grams per cubic centimeter is going to be that's the next big step for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, people are getting really obsessed with statistics just across the board in 2021. Yeah, I think we need grams per cubic centimeter.
All right. But anyway, this C2, so the C2 shaping gets the longer radius in the DPS world, about 19 meters. And they use, so that's their more kind of on-trail oriented, faster, more directional skis versus the RP, which has the 15-meter turn radius. As a result, they're able to shape and rocker these skis a little bit differently, so you get more of that directional and on-trail quality. For a 106, we say this with a couple of these skis here, pretty surprising how strong the ski carves. So that core now of Pagoda now has aspen, paulownia, and I think it's ash.
Yeah,
is the
layered in
third
different
wood.
ways.
Yeah. And then 2 sheets of carbon top and bottom. So the carbon really does a lot of the heavy lifting because it is that full laminate. So we get that stiff flex that we've seen from these DPS skis, similar to that core where, you know, it's just impossibly stiff for how light it is. And then for that rocker profile, you know, they don't have to adhere to the crazy rocker that the RPs do to get that turn radius. So we see a little bit more, you know, well-rounded of a profile here.
Yep.
You know, we do get that tip rocker there when we decamber the ski. And then the tail, we see that as well. You know, that's going to give you more playfulness for something this stiff. Having that tail rocker there is going to give it that smeariness that you want out of that 106. You know, probably not the best like pure powder floater
Yeah, I agree.
on this wall, but I would say that its strengths lie in its carving ability on firmer snow and crud busting. So like the cruddy, the manky, the cut up snow, this thing really plows right through it. So, and as always with DPS, you know, you do pay that premium price tag, but you get the quality. You know, that carbon is high quality aerospace carbon. How they build the skis, made in the USA. All of those things really kind of go to, you know, speak to the quality, the durability of these, you know, just a really fun ski. Just the awesome carving. Like,
Yeah.
I keep going back to that. You know, in that 19-meter radius with that carbon, it really lines up well with, you know, a lot of skiers and how they ski. Definitely a faster option than the RP.
Yeah, I think it's just like more of a traditional feel,
Yeah,
I think, than
I'd
the
say
RP,
so.
which feels weird because like traditions in this category don't
Yeah.
go back that far. Like we're talking like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, the RP skis, because they're so short, their turn radius, and such drastic rocker, I feel like some people get on those skis and they're kind of like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But this has more of a traditional feel.
Yeah.
More straightforward, so to speak.
And interestingly, like I'm more of an RP C2 skier on paper, but I prefer like I don't know. I like how those RPs finish their turns, and that's not to say that these don't, but just from a personal preference standpoint,
Sure.
The RP lines up a little bit better with.
Not quite as agile here.
No, it's not, and you definitely feel the tail of these skis holding on tight to the turn.
Yeah, which some skiers will like. You
Yep.
know, it just depends on your skiing style.
Yeah.
You touched on durability, and yeah, I think that's, if you're trying to justify the cost of a DPS, I think durability and longevity are two of the big factors. Okay, next ski and last ski over here on the left side of the wall. Second pink ski is the Fischer Ranger 102 FR. I don't own a pair of these, but you know, sometimes I feel like I do. I don't know why. I just feel like I have a pretty strong connection to these skis. Just about hitting the threshold of 2,000 grams here. In fact, we're tipping over between 1996 and 2002, which are pretty significant years of my life as well. It's like elementary school and junior high right there, or something like that. But yeah, the Ranger 102 FR, super fun ski. You know, I started this video by saying that these skis really lean more towards freeride use than all mountain, and then I said like a couple of them kind of blur the lines. I think this is one of them, being narrower at 102 underfoot, and also just its overall performance. It is certainly something that you could ski every day. Lots of Western skiers ski these every day. Noah here at Stowe skis them just about every day. There are a lot of these on the hill, East Coast to West Coast. So certainly something that you could ski every day. Classic Fischer construction in the ski. So wood core, arrow shape construction. So you get that kind of convex shaping to the tip. It's more noticeable up here. Somebody actually in the comments asked, like, if it's convex, how do you mount the bindings? And it's actually, that's a really good question. And it is pretty flat right here underfoot. So you get that arrow shape kind of through the fore and aft sections of the ski. Carbon tip, you know, that's important for Fischer's construction. That carbon tip allows them to build the ski incredibly thin while still retaining just a lot of strength, you know, a lot of precision up here in the tip. And then this is one of the skis up here that I call it a twin tip. It's certainly a directional twin tip. So pretty long tip rocker there. Again, you can see how thin that carbon nose is, which I just always think that's super cool. And then not quite as long tail rocker, but I would describe that at least as a partial twin tip. And it comes through in how you ski it too. And hopefully you can see on camera how much the profile of the ski tapers from being pretty thick underfoot and then really thin in the tips and tails. So a pretty strong ski. Fischer in the Ranger line, they have the TI and the FR lines.
Yep. You
don't get as much feedback out of the tail of these skis, so a little bit more washing, less preference to finish a carving turn, but still pretty darn strong. There's a stiff enough flex pattern there that you can ski it pretty fast. I often talk about these skis in relation to the Enforcer 104 down there. For people that are kind of considering that partial twin tip shape, wide all mountain, narrow freeride ski, those are two good ones to consider. And this is kind of just like a lighter Enforcer 104 in its actual weight and how it skis. It's a little bit more energetic. It's a little easier to throw around. But it's a ski that I trust too. I had the opportunity to ski off the summit of Mount Hood on a pair of these in this exact length. And to be perfectly honest, halfway down from the top of Mount Hood, I literally stopped and thought, I can't think of a ski that I would rather be on right now. Because they're pretty lightweight, so in steep terrain like that, you're making a lot of really quick turns, and it's pretty important to make your turn so you don't fall into a volcanic
fall off the mountain.
Yeah. Don't die. So I trusted them, but they were playful and fun too. Really fun skis. I always think about the review that we did on these where we had Ryan ski them and Noah ski them and Marcus ski them, and 3 very different skiers. They all own them and they all really like skiing them.
Yeah, and I remember getting on these, way back when, 3 years ago, 3 springs ago now.
Yep.
And thinking, I want to take these in the woods. This is what I want to ski in the woods here in Vermont, and couldn't have been happier.
Yeah.
Light and maneuverable in the tip, playful in the tail, solid throughout, but still easy to get where you want to go.
Yep.
So just a perfect tree ski especially for tighter woods, even at that width. So great floater, great tree ski.
Yeah. I'm glad you bring up tree skiing. I own a pair of Enforcer 104s. I ski with Noah a lot, who skis on these. There are definitely times when I'm following Noah through the woods, and I can't help but think, I am working harder than him right now. And I think that's true. When we get to the Enforcer 104, we'll talk about the benefits that ski has. It's a trade-off. It's a give or take. But yeah, just extremely agile in the woods and just a blast to ski.
Yep, absolutely. I think they've done a fantastic job with those over the years.
And if you buy a pair, you can be a part of the social media trend #PinkSkiGang.
I did not know that was a thing.
You'd love it. You got to check it out.
Now we're on this side of the wall here. We got the Elan Ripstick 106 Black. Why don't you hand me over that regular 106 here. And we talk about this quite a bit, and just kind of the similarities and differences between the Black Edition and the regular edition. In a few ways, I feel like Elan has done themselves a disservice by kind of forcing us to call that the regular Ripstick 106.
Right.
And the connotation being that this is the superior ski.
It's hard not to think that way, just looking at them on paper.
Right.
But I don't think it's fair.
I don't think it's fair, and there's nothing regular about this ski in a negative fashion. So it's just one of those things that, whether they didn't think about how people were going to view them or not, or if it's something that we've just made up in our own minds, I don't know. But there are certainly technical differences that make this 106 Black a higher performance model. But that doesn't mean that it's the right ski for everyone.
It's similar to what we were just talking about with the Ranger 102 and the Enforcer 104.
Yeah.
There are benefits to both of those skis. It's not like one is just objectively better than the other.
Sure. that said, this one has more carbon. So same footprint, same wood core construction, same vapor tip. What we're seeing is 2 additional carbon tubes. So one that's running through the forebody of the ski up here, and then one that's running through the rear end of the ski back behind the binding and back. So we get those 2 central carbon tubes. 19, oh, did we mismeasure here? We're back below 2000, 1950 something.
Somewhere our organization got screwed up, so this should go right there.
At any rate, it's about 100 grams heavier than the regular Ripstick 106. And so we get those 2 additional carbon rods through the forebody and through the tail. And then we get an added carbon line technology. It's just a wider and bigger carbon laminate. So this one in the black edition actually goes edge to edge underfoot and then tapers to the sides to the inside edges in the forebody and through the tail. So it's a bigger carbon laminate, horizontal carbon laminate in this 106 black. That's pretty much it. Those are the only 2 really differences between the black edition and the normal. Adds an extra 100 grams to the ski, and I think that this does probably one of the best jobs of mimicking metal that we've seen. When you get on this thing, you put it up on edge, you push it to speed, you ski it aggressively. It feels like there's 2 sheets of metal in this ski because of how damp and stable it is. And that it's one of the more impressive things that I've seen. It doesn't make like the clean round turns of that K2, but it is more of that directional, powerful, on-trail, free-ride, carving ski. Really does a whole lot of things well. We had, the 188 in the demo last year, and I definitely held on to that thing longer than, maybe I should have.
Longer than our typical test period.
I didn't really want to give anyone else a chance. I definitely kept it in the truck for a few weeks.
4 months.
I probably put about 10 solid days on this as in like my personal skiing, which I don't normally do. So that kind of speaks to the impression that I got from this ski. For myself, who's a little bit heavier and more aggressive, this is a better choice for me than the normal 106. But someone else will not have that same experience. But it does have that stiffer flex. It's pretty darn consistent. They still have that vapor tip insert in the tips. So just this very front is a little bit softer, but the rest of it's pretty darn consistent from tip to tail. And like that 106, we're not going to see really anything different in terms of rocker profile and taper shape. That kind of blunted out nose there. I got these in 6 to 8 inches of snow. Obviously if I ski them for 2 weeks, I'm going to get some snow somewhere along the way, but
hopefully.
Fantastic floating skis, really strong out of the tail, stayed right up on top of the snow, great in the crud. I had no issues with these whatsoever in any type of soft snow. And I think you had the same experience on the groomers and on even firmer snow. That's where these really kind of stood out, was how do they make it carve like this?
Yep.
You get this thing up on high edge angle, as we like to do in these Ripstick skis, and it just held, and it just pulled you right through the turn. Yep. Really impressive.
Yeah, the first time I skied those, we stopped halfway down the run, and it was one of those situations where it was probably you. I turned around and was just like, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, it's just unbelievable that they can achieve that feel at that weight without an overly stiff flex pattern. Yeah, there's just a lot of good things about those skis.
Yep. And, again, not to discount the regular Ripstick.
Right.
There's that skier exists, and there's a lot of them. And this one does too. And it's just a matter of kind of identifying where you are on that spectrum and how you're planning on using the ski and how aggressively you're skiing. And similar to your 102 and the 104 free here is, how are you using this, and what's your best bet?
Yeah, and like this ski feels more playful to me. It feels springier and poppier. Like it wants to jump off stuff and likes to be in the air. Yep. Where that ski wants to just stay glued to the snow.
Yeah.
that's kind of the difference that I feel when I ski them back to back,
Yep.
which was fun to do last year, ski them back to back.
Yeah, definitely.
Next ski on the wall is a fun one to talk about. This is the Revolt 104 from Volkl. Pretty unique ski on this wall, partly because like a lot of, oh boy, we're way off on our, so this ski we're back to 1970 grams. Somehow Bob and I totally screwed up the organization around here, these middle four skis, but anyways, I hope you can forgive us because they're all pretty close. So 1900 and say 40 grams in this ski. Pretty unique because, like I was saying, it doesn't use a ton of technology. Pretty straightforward build here. We get a multi-layer wood core, similar build to what Volkl uses in a lot of their skis. Sandwich construction, fiberglass, no extra frills, no innovative technology in this ski. What we do get is pretty innovative shape. So kind of going back to the Blaze, it actually has similar rocker camber profile to that ski, although a little different. But up here in the tip, we get really, really long tip rocker. We get a little bit more camber, at least higher rise camber than the Blaze. But then back here in the tail, again, we get really long tail rocker. And the Revolt 104 is distinctly a twin tip. You know, it is not as much rise in the tail as the tip, but definitely a twin tip. So pretty interesting resulting performance from the rocker profile, and the taper shape is pretty cool too. So not like drastic taper in the tip, but we do get kind of this straightened out, smooth section of the ski. A little bit more drastic tail taper back here. Reasonably stiff flex pattern, at least for a twin tip. Going back to the Revolt or the Reckoner 102, the Revolt 104 is a stiffer ski than something like that.
Yeah.
It is still one of the softer flexing skis on this wall, I think that's fair to say, but to compare it to the Reckoner, which comes up a lot, a little stiffer. So to keep with that comparison, we get this question all the time. Like, I'm considering the Reckoner 102 or the Revolt 104. How do they differ and which one should I get? Yeah. My answer is always along the lines of they can basically do the same thing, they just do it differently. So because this is stiffer, they need to build that longer tip rocker into it, and that's where you get the buttery, smeary feel. In the Reckoner, you get that from the softer flexing tips and tails more than the fact that they have long rocker lines.
Yes.
You know, they do get a lot of rocker in the Reckoner as well, but not nearly as much as this ski. So that's kind of where the playfulness in a smeary, buttery perspective comes from, is the long rocker lines. But you get a stronger ski at high speeds in the Revolt 104 compared to the Reckoner.
Yep.
So a little bit more slow speed playfulness out of this ski, but a little bit more high speed stability. You know, I think especially right here underfoot, it's a pretty darn strong ski through its mid body. So that's always kind of a determining factor for me when recommending it, is how aggressive are you, how fast do you like to ski.
Yeah.
If you like to ski really fast, I think there are benefits to this. This is a little bit more agile as like a dedicated park ski. This to me is more of a skier that's maybe going into the park like 30 or 40% of the time rather than 40 or 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Interesting way to think about it.
And I'd say this would hold up better in deeper snow too.
Absolutely,
So
I was going to mention that as well.
Your backcountry freeride booters,
Yep.
stuff like that, you're going to want a little bit more of the strength of this ski.
Yeah, you actually see a lot of Volkl athletes putting like Duke PTs on these
Yep.
and using them exactly for that, for backcountry jumps.
And then that tail too, I would just, reiterate what Jeff was saying, that I think that the taper difference is greater
Between
in this
tip
ski.
and tail.
Between tip and tail. Whereas it's rounder, that rounder turn shape out of that K2 really stands out. This is a little bit straighter, and I don't see a turn radius on this one here, but I'm pretty sure it's longer than that of the
Yes.
K2, mostly because this is a little bit straighter in the back, especially after that widest part of the taper. So you do get an easier release in the powder.
Yep.
A little bit surfy and smearier in the tail specifically. I think that's really where a lot of the difference lies with this versus the other skis on the wall is that tail shape.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
pretty interesting stuff. And now we kind of go from that freestyle sense back into that directional free ride. Let's see if our consistency in weights keeps being off with this.
We gotta be back to correct momentarily.
Yeah, check our scale. Yeah, recalibrate here.
I do think we may need to recalibrate our scale.
At any rate, the scale currently is reading 1710. Oh, we gotta tear it. Pick that thing up. Let's see if that helps.
Way better.
Much
There we
better.
go.
Okay, 1970 for this Kastle FX 106 Ti. So still, weight aside, we're back to the metal.
Yeah.
Kastle does a great job at building these high quality, highly precise skis. This FX 106 went from the went to an HP version these past few years, where they took the metal out, incorporated a fiberglass and carbon sock around the wood core. Back to the 2 sheets of metal now with this TI version. Certainly makes a difference in terms of the stability, edge grip, and dampness. Similar to that DPS, I'm putting this as one of the most capable carving skis on the wall. And not just because it's a Kastle, but because it actually feels like it has that substance to it. A little kind of an opposite flex of that Fischer with the carbon nose. This has the hollow tech, so we see a little bit softer of a flex in the very shovel, and then stiffer throughout the rest of the ski. So that's going to give you good ease of entry into the turn, and then really strong edge grip and kick through the midsection and into the tail. Nothing too dramatic here about the rocker profile. We do see a little bit of that in the tip here, and some of that taper as well, so that widest part's a little bit farther down, but good camber underfoot, and then kind of, I would say, on the flatter end of the range of the tails coming in this group. We saw, what was it, the Senders, a little bit flatter as well. Just not a ton of splay there, so that's going to hold on tight to the end of the turn. But just the precision and the quality of these Kastle skis really make them stand out from the rest. So
yeah, I was gonna compare it to this Corvus Freebird in the sense that when these skis were designed, just go back as far as you want to when the FX collection was designed. They're designed for off-piste kind of backcountry terrain. Chris Davenport's signature used to be on the FX 95, I think. They've changed quite a bit since then, but again, to go back to the use in technical demanding terrain like that, you want a pretty stiff tail like this Corvus has, like the Sender has. You don't want to be washing out when you're above a 100-foot cliff.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So a really nice blend of that floaty freeride tip and then the more business-like tail. And we see it with these other Kastles that have gone back to the TI versions, the 96, and now the 86 also gets the TI. That it just, it also separates itself. I think we'll talk about one of the ZX skis in our upcoming videos, but we're separating from that ZX model a little bit more freeride aspect. So putting these more in that all mountain freeride category, I think would be pretty fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say for sure. One of the stronger carvers up here too.
Yeah, for sure.
I had a blast skiing those back in December, I think, the first time that we skied those. And yeah, going back to our discussion of wider skis and carving on them, I've maybe even preferred carving on that compared to the FX 96.
Yeah.
Just higher edge angle, more ski to kind of push against.
But you can definitely feel that the change back to the metal versus the HP, which was snappy and energetic.
Yep.
It just wasn't quite as damp or stable as these TI versions are.
Yep. Next ski is the Blizzard Rustler 10. Gosh, going back to kind of our conversation about this ski and how it blurs the line between an all-mountain ski and a freeride ski, this is another one. Now that we've recalibrated our scale, we're at about 2,070 grams. We will go back. If any of these were drastically off, I'll put the actual weight figure in the video. I think we might have been like 40 or 50 grams off through here. Anyways, I digress. The Rustler 10 is, I think, arguably one of the most well-rounded skis on this wall, one of the most approachable skis on this wall with the broadest appeal, more of a resort ski than an alpine touring ski, which I think we've reached the threshold where most of the rest of the skis we're going to be talking about are a little heavy for alpine touring, with some exceptions based on you as a skier, which we'll talk about through these next skis. But I think you're going to see way more of these in the resort than you are in the backcountry, and I think that's a much better place for them. So Rustler skis were designed to complement skis like the Bonafide. In fact, the Rustler 10, you could say, was specifically designed to complement the Bonafide 97. Way more tail rocker in skis like this compared to the Bonafide. So if we want to start looking back here at tail rocker, if we had a Bonafide up here, you wouldn't see really any tail rocker whatsoever, where these have quite a bit of rise back there in the tail. And then long tip rocker as well, and much more splay than you would see in a ski like the Bonafide. And then there's major differences in construction as well. So we get a wood core in these skis, slightly lighter core than we see in skis like Bonafide again, and we get carbon flip core DRT. So there's some unidirectional carbon fiber in the tips and tails, kind of adding a little precision as well as a little vibration damping in the tips and tails. And then we get this partial metal laminate underfoot. So full width underfoot, and then tapers as you reach the ends of the ski. In the 90 millimeter comparison, we talked a lot about partial metal laminates. There aren't too many skis up here that use partial metal laminates, but it's interesting to see how Blizzard differs from like the K2s and the Dynastars and the similarities behind those builds, but the differences as well. So you get kind of almost two different personalities in this ski. Underfoot, you get camber and you get full width metal, so you get a pretty strong feel underfoot. But the tips and tails are just incredibly forgiving, and it gives the ski a very, very maneuverable, pretty easygoing feel. Whenever I think about the Rustler 10, I think about one of those like media on snow or industry on snow demo days. I don't remember exactly where it was. It was Pico or Loon or one of those, and it was the end of the second day of testing, so I had skied like probably 30 skis over the course of 2 days. We had some soft snow. Things, it was tiring skiing, and I was exhausted after 2 days of testing. And the last ski I skied was a Rustler 10, and it wasn't the first time I skied it. I just wanted to get back on it as kind of a refresher. And it was so rewarding and so just like refreshing to get on the Rustler 10 after all the other skis I had been on. And it just reminded me how easy it is to ski, but it has a high performance ceiling too. Yeah. So you could put I really feel like you could put an intermediate on these skis and they'll do just fine. Like it could be an intermediate's powder ski. Right. Or like an East Coast intermediate's powder ski. But then you put an expert skier on these and it's the most versatile tool that you could imagine. Right. You can carve, you can play in the trees, you can go through some moguls. It's just a very well-rounded ski. I feel like it's kind of going back to like an intermediate's powder ski. I feel like there's a few different applications for it in how it fits into a quiver. I think for some skiers it could be a one ski quiver. Yep. Like I'm thinking about somebody out west, maybe you live in Colorado or something like that. Plenty of carving performance for the conditions you get out there. But then it could be like the third or fourth ski in a quiver too. For somebody here at Stowe, it could be like your go-to tree ski. Right. You have like a carving ski, maybe a mid-90s all-mountain ski, a tree ski, and a super wide powder ski. Yeah. I think it can fill a lot of different roles for a lot of different skiers, and I think there's a lot to like about it.
we get a lot of questions, this versus the 102.
Yep.
And I think that that's a really good comparison, both in terms of their playfulness and their well-roundedness.
Yep.
So you have that, you know, just with the tail being more playful, you know, where that metal ends kind of lines up with the rocker profile in these 10s, is pretty similar to what we see in that pink 102, where it's just an easy ski to release the tail from, but you do get a good amount of energy out of it. So I get that question a lot, is Rustler 10 versus Ranger 102, and I think that those are two very similar skis in terms of kind of overall performance and character.
Yeah, and probably just a little more energy out of this one.
Yep.
And a little bit more vibration damping out of this one is where I would draw the line.
But, you know, great to see that Rustler trend continue.
Yeah.
You know, they're just great overall skis. Next up, we got the Rossignol Sender Ti. So we were talking earlier about the Sender and how that was more of kind of the every person's powder ski. This takes a lot of that same kind of mentality, but
just
gives it a boost.
Yep.
Really kind of turbocharges it. So a little bit wider of a footprint in this. These do get wider as they get longer. So we do see, because even this comes in a 194, that's going up to 108 underfoot.
Which
so
would be, if we had the 194, it would be the widest ski up here.
I think you're right. So, you know, it's going to be one of the better floaters. Definitely more of a directional powder ski than more of a twin tip or Freeride type thing.
Yep.
But certainly, you know, the power is there.
Absolutely.
We get a poplar wood core with this one. We get dual LCT with ABS, so it's a bit stiffer of a line control technology.
Yeah, denser.
Versus the Visco of the Sender. And then we get the carbon alloy matrix in this ski as well. So it's definitely a stiffer flex than that regular Sender, and more stability and dampness. But we're not looking at a whole lot of other differences other than it's a little bit burlier.
Yeah.
It comes in those longer lengths, so it's a little bit wider. You know, it has that metal underfoot here, so it's going to be, you know, stiffer edge to edge. I was pretty impressed with the on-trail carving capabilities when I first got on this a couple years ago.
I think that's certainly one of their highlights.
Yeah.
Which kind of translates to like crud busting,
Yeah.
chopped up snow performance. Does that really well also.
Right, and a lot of that has to do with this tail, this flatter tail. So when you're in that crud and that mank, if you have that more dramatic rocker or taper here, that's going to make it do a little bit more floating versus kind of cutting straight through, which is where this tail shape really comes in handy. You know, I picture kind of peak 8 at Breckenridge, you know, going straight and fast down those wide open bowls. This I would rather have than something with more splay on the end. So that's, you know, that's a huge plus for this ski. And then just kind of similar to what we've talked about with like the Enforcer 100 is just that similar tip shape that we've seen in a lot of these modern all mountain and Freeride skis. Just kind of that long, little bit of early taper, but not too much. So it allows the ski to track well, to float well. It doesn't yank you into the turn, but also you can push it when you want, and it'll hook up really easily. So just a whole lot of fun in this Sender Ti. And I, you know, as an ego-driven skier, I love how it comes in that 194.
Yeah, and you know we've touched on it before. I think most people should choose the Sender.
Right.
Like in the vast majority of all skiers, I think that's, you know, you mentioned how close their performance is.
Yeah.
You're not gaining a ton here, and I think for some skiers there could be like more drawbacks by going with the Sender Ti. A little heavier. Maybe you like saw the Ti, so you wanted to get it, but really you should be on something in the 170s, and you end up being on a 180, and it's too much ski, and you know there's a lot of things to consider when choosing between the Sender and the Sender Ti. And yeah, as an ego-driven sport, I think a lot of people will lean towards this, but don't be afraid of choosing the Sender, or don't be ashamed of choosing the, like, I don't think anyone's afraid of it.
Right.
I think ashamed is a better word. It's still, that is still a strong, extremely capable ski.
Yep.
So just things to consider.
Yeah, and similar disservice done to in the marketing departments for the regular Sender, as we see with the regular Ripstick, where, you know, whether we're making it up in our heads and making a bigger deal out of it or not, like, it's just, it's interesting to see that they do the similar things with different skis.
Yeah, exactly. Next we have the Salomon QST 106. This is one of 2 QST models that is not changing for 2022. So the QST 106 is staying the same, just a slight cosmetic build, and perhaps the best looking base ever.
I would say you're right up there.
It's got to be close.
I think that blank is pretty nice too.
Yeah, I prefer the orange. Anyways, getting back to the ski's performance, because I don't think too many people care about color. I might be wrong. This is one of the skis that, you know, when we put it up here, I talked about skis that kind of surprised us. This one sort of surprised me in the sense that it's a little heavier than I think some people think it is.
Yep.
So this one comes in at 21 and 50 grams. This is the 181 centimeter length. And we get some big tips and tails in this ski.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it is a big ski. So that's where some of the weight's coming from. But, you know, when the shift was introduced, I think people gravitated or at least associated the shift with QST skis, which is certainly appropriate to do. And I think in a lot of people's mind, that positioned this as like this hybrid resort touring ski.
Yeah.
It's really better as a resort ski.
Yeah.
Can you tour on it?
Sure.
Absolutely. You can do whatever you want. I have touring bindings on heavier skis, which is silly. But yeah, you can tour on it. Salomon athletes do. Plenty of people will. Just remember that it's on the heavier side.
Yeah.
So in terms of build, we get a wood core. We get Salomon's CFX material, which is really important to their performance. That's kind of a key to the QST models in general. Key to the way that Salomon builds skis right now, I think is fair to say. So it's blending carbon and flax, which is really interesting. When it first came out, we talked a lot about it. You benefit from the energy and the responsiveness and the feedback of carbon, but the flax kind of quiets some of the vibrations. Carbon can be a very pingy material if you don't add in something to quiet it, or if you don't use aerospace grade carbon, or if you don't use carbon in tubes.
Right.
You know, we're not really seeing any just ski carbon, that's it.
Right.
Because it gives it a weird feel. So that's kind of the way that Salomon quiets the ski. We also get some cork up in the tip. Shape of the QST 106, certainly one of the more powder-oriented skis. In fact, this might just be the best powder ski on the wall. Maybe the Blaze 106. You know, there's some contenders to it, but this has got to be right up there for best powder ski on this wall. So plenty of tip rocker up here. Not as much early taper as some, so you get that big, wide, fat tip that's going to stay on top of the snow. Quite a bit of camber underfoot, so you do get some snappy, kind of poppy, energetic performance from that camber. And then a good amount of tail rocker too. What's interesting is the 106 used to kind of split the difference between the QST 99 and the QST 118.
Yeah.
So it had more tail rocker than the 99, but less than the 118. It now has less tail rocker than the new QST 98, as well as less than the QST blank.
Yeah.
So it kind of is putting it in it's almost repositioning the ski in Salomon's line without actually changing the ski. So if you want a soft snow ski, you want a QST ski, but you want a little bit more feedback from the tail, you want a little bit more stability at speed, so tracking performance through choppy snow, that's where the QST 106 is now going to be best. And in doing so, I think it retains a pretty forgiving, approachable feel.
Yes.
Even though it's on the heavier side of the spectrum, it's one of the easier skis to ski on this whole wall. It's got a nice broad appeal, you know, anyone can ski it, but you get good stability out of it too.
Yeah.
So it's a nice blend of playfulness, ease of use, forgiveness, soft snow performance, but also stability and a strong feel.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about this tail rocker, and we talk about this with the Stance 102, is that it's a pretty abrupt, camber, and then kind of a abrupt bend up into the tail rocker.
Yeah, these skis actually use the same rocker profile as the Stance 102.
Yeah. Whereas that new QST 98 and blank is more rounded.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a performance difference to be noted there. That these are going to have that kind of ultimate, planing out of the snow in the tail. It's less. It's not as hooky.
Yeah.
But maybe not quite as smooth. I think that we'll see some differences maybe for 2023 with that. But for now, really good at getting up and out of the powder. And that's what makes this really, like you said, probably if I had to ski a resort powder day, this would be one of my top choices for sure.
Yeah, I'd probably take QST 106.
Yeah. But another interesting, aspect of marketing versus reality where, all right, we're taking a shift, and we're taking Salomon's Shift Pro 130 boot,
right,
and making a touring setup here, where in reality, like, that's pretty heavy.
That's pretty heavy. Yeah.
That's a 130 flex boot with a a 14 din binding and a 2100 gram ski.
Yeah.
Versus something like Atomic, where that Backland 107 is super light. You can make up the difference with that shift, and then maybe a lighter boot. But at any rate, it's going to ski well in soft snow.
Absolutely.
And just be a ton of fun. Nothing wrong with that.
No, I am 100% confident that you will continue to see a lot of QST 106s.
Yep. Next up, a Nordica Enforcer 104
I
free.
can't believe I got all the twin tips, but I didn't get this one.
You can talk about it if you want.
Just kidding.
We talked a little bit about partial metal. I believe, other than this big one at the end, the only other one with 2 sheets of metal. So we get that typical Enforcer construction with the wood core and 2 sheets of metal. We get the carbon in the tips as well, and through that fiberglass. So it does give it a good amount of snap. What is it? True tip technology is what I'm thinking of. So
carbon chassis and true tip are the latest.
Those are the
latest
terms.
upgrades.
So that true tip makes it a little bit easier than we see in the older Enforcer 100s, more maneuverable in the tips, and that's good news for when you're in softer snow. One of the big differences between the Enforcer 100 and this 7600 gram ski is the rocker profile. So that 100 we see less rocker in the tips and tails. We see more here, less camber underfoot, but you definitely see that bend in the tails, and that's giving this ski quite a bit of float and smeariness, even with those 2 sheets of metal. So kind of like with that head, where you have to counteract the stiffness with the shape. Nordica is doing that with the rocker profile here as well. So making this more playful, easier to release turns, better flotation, more of that free ride, freestyle influence. It does a really nice job of that. And ever since this ski came out, I mean, you just see more and more and more of them on the hill. Extraordinarily popular ski, and with good reason. It's just a whole lot of fun. Nice, very consistent flex. Stiff but not overpowering, although, there's not a whole lot of skiers that are going to reach the top end of this thing out there.
No, that's fair to say, for sure. I think what's made it such a popular ski is it's just a great blend of stability and power, but also maneuverability and soft snow performance.
Yep.
I really enjoy owning a pair, and I talked about this, I think, when we did the full review of the Enforcer 104, is for me they fill like 2 really interesting roles that are like almost contradictory. Like it's my tree ski
Yep.
and my powdered ski, basically. I do have something wider, but here in Stowe, I just go with the 104 on most powder days. So it's like my soft snow playful ski, but I have it mounted with a Pivot 18. So it's also the ski that I take when I want to ski just really fast.
Right.
Some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm just going to ski like 50 to 60 miles an hour all day. Or, probably not that fast, but I'm going to ski really fast today and make big, giant turns. So I take it for that purpose too.
Yeah.
And it really shines in both of those applications. A lot of people ask about this ski for touring. I always tell people, some people do it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of Nordica athletes that put touring bindings on here. I think that most skiers will want a lighter ski, but it is something that is doable. The other thing that people ask about is terrain park performance with the twin tip shape. Again, you can do it.
Yeah.
I did it because people were asking about it. I don't normally take mine into the park unless I'm like coaching or something. But I think I did like a 540 or something and then slid some rails. And yeah, it's heavy.
Yep.
It's noticeably heavy. When you're spinning, you can feel the drag, and on rails you can kind of feel the sluggishness. Sluggishness?
Yes. Yeah.
Sluggishness. It's a challenging word. So not the best for touring, not the best for park. If you're the type of person that's like, I'm going to be in the resort 80% of the time, just skiing the mountain. I might go in the park 10% of the time, and I might tour 10% of the time. Sure.
Yeah.
Like that's a fine application for it. If you're like, I ski in the park 60% of my time, the other 30% of the time I'm touring, 10% of the time I'm just skiing lifts.
Yeah.
There are better skis for that skier. So those are some common questions that come up about it. So it does have its limitations. It is a very, very good ski.
Yeah.
But there are some things that it's not the best at, which is fair.
And I think, and to differentiate it between like the Enforcer 100 a little bit more, just again, this has that, that burly build, but the playful shape.
Yeah.
Whereas the Enforcer 100, and we get that a lot too, which one do I want, the 104 or the 100?
Right.
And again, your 80-10-10 ratio, comes into play there too. If you're 90% at the resort, either on trails or somewhere in that inbounds, that 100 is probably going to be a better choice.
Yep.
But if you're, because at the end of the day, that 4 millimeters isn't
Not
make or
not a
break
lot.
for flotation. It's more about the profile
Yep.
and the playfulness of this. But yeah, burly build, playful shape, really fun overall ski. Glad to have this one back as well.
So the next ski may have been the most surprising ski when we went to weigh it. I remember you picked this one up and you were like, "Oh, that's heavy."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We just get a wood core, some carbon stringers in this ski, so there's nothing crazy about its build, but it comes in at 2,170 grams. So on the heavier side of the spectrum. What length is this? 180. So we're not like super, super long, longer than some of the skis we've looked at, but I think 2,170 grams is heavier than most people would expect for an Armada ARV 106.
Yeah, if you're thinking about a wider twin tip, my guess is you would be thinking
Your mind is over here.
or over there versus second to heaviest.
Exactly. Now, the ARV skis in general have a lot of freestyle influence in them. ARV, somebody asked this question recently, and I actually knew the answer, which was crazy because it's going way back.
Yeah.
What does ARV stand for? AR stands for Armada. V stands for versatility. So these skis were designed to be more versatile all-mountain skis, but still with freestyle influence.
Yeah.
So when Armada first came out, they had the AR5 and the AR6. The ARVs were designed to complement those skis. So something that you can absolutely take into the park if you want to, but it is designed for more all-mountain use as well. So quite a lot of camber underfoot, high camber height too. Kind of a step-down sidewall. In fact, pretty cool design to the sidewall. It's almost full sidewall underfoot, maybe 50% sidewall until you reach the rockered sections of the ski, and then it goes to cap construction. Nice long tip rocker, not the longest in this comparison, but a good amount of tip rocker up there for soft snow. And then this is one of the most symmetrical skis up here. So you get a lot of tail rocker too, and that's kind of where that freestyle influence is coming from. We get, I believe, Smear Tech was the technology. Yeah. So very similar to Atomic's Horizon Tech and how they just kind of shape the tips and tails of the ski kind of like a boat hull. Give the ski a little bit more float. It's not the strongest ski up here, but as you can tell from that flex pattern, it's certainly not a noodle. Right. So with the weight and with that flex pattern, similar to the Enforcer 104, you're getting a good blend of stability, but also playfulness. It's not the lightest, so if you take it in the terrain park, just keep that in mind. You know, it's not going to be, you're not going to be like winning X Games on this ski, probably. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe
challenge.
Maybe somebody will. But it won't be like the quickest for spins, won't be the most agile ski for rails and stuff like that. It'll work, just keep in mind that it's on the heavier side. Not really something I'd want to tour on either, but a fantastic inbounds resort powder ski for a playful skier with a freestyle background.
Yep.
Really good for that. Armada did just come out with the ARW 106UL.
Yep.
ARW is the women's line, but they made that ski in longer lengths, and it's basically just a lightweight version of this.
Yep.
So kind of cool to have that option now. If you are looking for something on the lighter side of the spectrum, softer flex pattern, maybe you want to put a touring binding on it, stuff like that, Armada does have a ski where this is going to be more of a inbounds resort powder ski.
Yeah. And I picture this one on the back of snowmobiles headed off Vail Pass, too.
Yeah, absolutely. You probably see a lot of ARV 106s on snowmobiles in Vail Pass.
Yep.
Or, I don't, probably more like, we're probably dating ourselves, Bob. I think nowadays it's more like Grizzly Gulch, like more.
Is Vail Pass played? I
think Vail Pass.
I haven't been there in a while.
I think Vail Pass is played out. If anybody lives in Colorado and can confirm that not as many backcountry jumps are built in Vail Pass, that would be great. I might be wrong with that, but I feel like there was an era where that was just like the go-to spot.
Wow, the turn of the century.
I mean, I've been up there. Yeah, it was 2004 the first time I built a backcountry jump in Vail Pass. Or no, 2003. So yeah, turn of the century, turn of the millennia. Yeah. That's when. So I don't know why we're off on a Vail Pass tangent, but great backcountry jump ski if you're snowmobiling to your destination.
Yes. And I like this too. Another cool thing about this is that the edge actually ends. This kind of goes along with the Smear Tech.
Yeah.
There's no edge from here all the way through the front, and same through the back. So there's, how they get the ski is heavy without that metal there too is. There's probably a lot of fiberglass and epoxy.
There's a lot of fiberglass and epoxy, and it is, in the grand scheme of things on this wall, it is on the more affordable side of the spectrum. And, this is going to sound like a negative, and it's just the reality when it comes to ski construction. A less expensive build is going to be heavier. And that is a more traditional way of building a ski.
Right.
We've seen it, we toured the K2 factory, or the K2 development center, and I think we shared some of the footage and shared some of the conversations that we had when we were at that factory. When you're putting a bunch of epoxy in a ski, nothing is heavier than that epoxy. It's the epoxy that's adding all the weight. Right. So, when we talk about Stokely skis, which, to bring up Stokely, they don't make a ski wide enough for this comparison. I guess the 102 could have made the cut. It'll be in a different comparison, but a big reason why Stokely skis are light is because they've refined the construction process and they use less of that stuff. Yeah. So, just a side note on ski construction and weight. Speaking of weight.
Last but not least, speaking of ego-driven skiing, this is, it's not ego so much as necessity. This is the Dynastar. We wanted to put a Dynastar. The 108 seemed to fit better in
the Atris category.
So we wanted to put a Dynastar in. We have these things. This is the M Pro 105 or the Pro Rider. And this thing is about as unique of a ski as we have in our entire warehouse.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. I think so. What could be more unique?
I don't know, but it's 2,631 grams on the scale right now. It only comes in this 192, which is why we have, that's part of the reason why it's 500 grams heavier than our next ski. But certainly when you pick it up, it's pretty darn clear that this is a totally different piece of machinery than anything else on this wall, or like I said, really anything in the warehouse. 105 millimeters underfoot. It's got a huge turn radius. I think it's 27 meter turn radius. Pretty darn stiff.
Yeah, I'll let you do that.
You
I have to stand on it
You can push it, but it takes some effort. Poplar wood core, 2 sheets of metal. For good measure, they throw in 3D construction on this, so even more material over the edges, in the tips and through the tails, kind of in these chatter zones here in the front and the back of the ski. One of the other really cool things, and I don't know if you can quite get a glimpse of it, but that poplar wood just goes right to the sidewall.
Yeah.
So wood sidewalls, really unique, construction technique there. It's going to be about as strong and stable as it gets on a ski. These things came in really thick plastic, and they still have
with a ton of wax
on them. So, really what this is meant for is a high-level big mountain competitor to get these, put their Pivot 18s on here, head to the top of Freeride World Tour,
and go drop an 80-foot cliff
and win.
Yeah.
That's where this thing, pretty one-dimensional in that regard is when you see something with this weight, with that turn radius, it's supposed to go fast.
Even among Freeride World Tour athletes, some of them use the M-Free and not this.
So it's pretty darn interesting. Like if you could, there's long camber underfoot, and that goes along with what we were saying with when you're in the sketchy spots, you want the camber underfoot, specifically through the tail. Not a ton of splay on this one, nor rocker. It is a little bit longer, but it's not dramatic by any stretch. And then that tail is pretty darn straight and flat.
Yep.
Just that little bit of bump out at the end, just to allow you to break from the turn and get into the next one. But overall, just a different animal than what we see on the mountain every day. Like, I don't know if there's a stow application for this. No. Maybe.
Oh, sure.
A couple runs a year.
Trying to break our max speed record on nosedive.
Yeah. Yep. Your top to bottom speed record would be on a snowy day.
Or like if they set a Super G course down Main Street, but then it snowed 6 inches.
Right. Which I always thought they should hold speed races in snowy conditions.
I think it'd be awesome. And
just
you could use this.
Adjust the gear.
Yeah.
I always thought that would be interesting, and not just cancel a speed race because it snows. So M-Pro 105 would be my choice for that.
Yep. Super unique ski.
Yep. And a good one to end on. I think it just kind of bookends this.
Yes.
This nicely.
From Backland 107 to Dynastar M-Pro, we have gone on quite a journey here. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this comparison. As always, let us know if you have any questions. I know we talked a long time, and there's a lot of information in here, but there's more to talk about.
Yep.
So really don't hesitate to ask us any questions. We always try and respond to those questions as quick as we can. So bear with us if it's taking a few days. Chances are we're just replying to other people that commented before you.
Yep.
So yeah, that's it. That's our Mid-100 2022 Freeride comparison. And look out for another comparison next week.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.